Hi, and welcome to the Changing Perspectives podcast, the show where we discuss a variety of topics, including grief, parenting, health and wellness, and relationships. Join us and explore a number of changing perspectives. We're your hosts, Jenni and Josh Brennan. Hi, Jenni.
Hi.
What's happening?
Not much.
This is episode 8.
I lost track. I'm glad you're counting.
Yes.
Perfect.
Well, I have a little cheat sheet in front of me so I can exactly know
that'll
where
do
we
it.
are.
Yes.
Yeah. So we are releasing 2 episodes a week now, Mondays and Thursdays.
Correct.
Very exciting. You can get Changing Perspectives twice a week. And I feel like we're being a little overrun in our studio at this moment for this. This is our 3rd episode we're recording today, and the natives are getting restless.
Oh, we have lots of pets. One of our cats is circling our table like a shark right now.
To turn up the mics or shut off something or press a button. I don't know.
We were putting her in another room and we forgot to do that. So we're just going to roll with it.
She made an appearance on episode 3, right? She made a big old loud noise. Says, I'm here. I'm Pixie and I'm here.
Right. So we're not that high tech.
No.
We are trying to figure out the best location to do this podcast.
I don't even think we're medium tech.
We're a little tech.
We're a little tech. A little bit. We have some microphones and some easy-to-use software that I'm still learning about, so it's all good. So do you want to tell everybody what we're talking about today?
We are not talking about death or grief today.
Or Disney.
Or Disney.
Maybe.
We are talking about...
I can't promise that Disney won't creep in.
But it might come up. We are talking about relationships today. Yeah. So if you listened to episode 4,
sure,
I think it was 4, where we talked about love languages and finding the love language for you and for your partner. We're going to kind of circle back to sort of topics like that from time to time. So today we're talking about how to kind of either maintain a connection with your partner or reconnect with your partner. So we've got 9 tips. And I think the caveat here is that we need to say that we are not perfect. No. We are not a perfect relationship. We are not a perfect couple. We are definitely not holding ourselves out there and saying, hey, be like us.
Right.
We are just saying we've been together a long time, and here are some of the things that we've learned just from being in a relationship, and also from being in the field and having some training. So I just wanted to put that in there, that I'm not trying to say that I think we're perfect. Every relationship has room to grow. Yeah,
I would agree with that.
Oh, good. We're on the same page there.
Although I'm perfect.
No,
okay. Mm-mm. Just kidding.
Nobody's perfect.
Nobody is perfect.
Nobody is perfect.
Definitely not relationships. I don't think there's any perfect relationship.
No, I was just going to say nobody's perfect, and neither is any relationship. Right. Relationships are work, and relationships don't always stay in that kind of honeymoon, butterflies in the stomach, everything's exciting, everything's new phase forever. There are lots of times where you don't like your patient. I love all of my patients. There are times, however, when I don't like my partner very much. And I think that there are lots of people for whom that's true. They may say, I really love my husband, but I don't like him very much right now. And there's space for that in relationships, right? Because you live with someone, you share a life with them, you share the responsibilities. Sometimes you don't sync up. And so what we have is some tips for ways to reconnect when things kind of fizzle down a little bit, or to stay connected when you're kind of at a good place.
Yeah.
Okay. So these are in no particular order. But number 1 is date your partner.
Yeah.
You sound like you agree.
That's a good one. That's a big one. I think it's important. What does that mean to you?
Well, to me, I think it means treating your partner as if you were still trying to woo them
Okay.
Trying to like court them. I mean, I'm not really from 1724, but it kind of sounds like I am.
Way to pull out a date. I don't know.
I don't know what happened then. It just seems like someone would say court. When you were still trying to kind of impress them. And,
right.
and, you know, for some people, they like fancy dates, you know, going out to a fancy restaurant and getting dressed up or going out dancing. Some people like going to the movies. Some people like picnics or going for a hike together. Whatever it is that you guys as a sort of younger couple, not necessarily younger in age, but younger sort of in your origin, whatever you used to do on dates, really, you shouldn't stop doing just because you've been together, whether you're, you know, sort of seriously committed now or you're married. You still should date each other. Those were the things that drew you together that you enjoyed doing. So for me, that's what I mean. I mean, do whatever is fun for you guys as a couple.
Right.
I tell a lot of my clients who are struggling, and that's most people. I think that's most couples right now, you know, especially if you have children. Life is busy. And if you're working, or if one of you is working and the other is home with the kids, or you're both working and you've got these kind of schedules that you're kind of two ships passing in the night, or you come home and by 9 o'clock when the kids are in bed, you're just exhausted and not ready to connect. It's really important to find a way to connect, to date. And so date nights sound kind of trivial and trite, but I think that they're really important. And I think for us, they have been important. I remember in the dark days when we had a newborn at home and a preschooler, it became really important to us to start date nights. And we had a lovely babysitter who we hired and I think booked every other like Friday night to come.
Like a standing
date night. It was a standing date night. And that piece was really important because I can tell you that most Friday nights would roll around and I was exhausted.
Yep.
And the last thing I wanted to do was like put on clothes and makeup and do my hair and go out. I just didn't want to. It didn't seem important. But the thing that did make it important and the thing that made it happen is that we had booked this wonderful young woman. She was counting on coming and getting paid. Yep. She had held out the time for us. And so we went. And some Fridays it would be, I don't really want to go out anywhere. So let's just go to Target and get some shopping done.
Well, Target without young kids.
I mean, that's really like a Caribbean vacation. It's Target without children.
It truly is.
Yeah, that's
fantastic.
True. We didn't recognize though that at the time.
No.
But even just to like go to a coffee shop and drink a cup of coffee became really important. And so we would go kind of begrudgingly and then have fun because it forced us to connect with each other. And we didn't all scroll cell phones quite as much back then as we do now. So once we were out, we were connecting and we would always come home much more in tune with each other and really much more fond of each other.
Right.
And I think that's still true today. In fact, when we're done recording, Josh wants to go out for a little bit tonight, and I really don't want to go. I'm tired and I want to just put on pajamas and go to bed, even though it'll be like 5 o'clock on a Saturday. 5 o'clock on a Saturday. Those are the lyrics, right?
For what?
Or is it 9 o'clock on a Saturday? Never mind.
Are you thinking of Piano Man?
I am, yes. It's 5 o'clock on a Saturday for old folk like myself. Well, anyways, my point is, hold on. My point is I'm going to go because I know I won't regret going, but I might regret not going. Right. Yeah. So dating your partner is really important. And honestly, I think I'm hard pressed to allow excuses. Maybe it's only once a month, once every other month. I know it's hard to find childcare. Maybe you have to date your partner at home after the kids have gone to bed because you don't have childcare, but you have an agreement that we're not going to be watching TV. We're not going to be on our phones. We're going to like have a picnic on the living room floor or something. And yes, I know this sounds cheesy.
We couldn't do that.
But you can't have a picnic on the floor when you have 3 dogs and 2 cats. It doesn't work.
Go ahead. Sorry.
They might like a picnic on the floor.
Yes.
But you got to make it happen.
Yeah,
it really is beneficial.
The point I was going to make is it doesn't have to be this big elaborate thing.
No, and it doesn't have to cost any money.
To the nines. No, it doesn't have to cost any money. I think back to a couple times, even before we had kids, when we were younger dating, we would just go sit at like a Barnes and Noble or one of those big bookstores that have the coffee shop inside, browse the aisles, whatever, sit down, have a cup of coffee. Even if there wasn't time for an actual dinner or a restaurant or something.
Or money. Right. Because we were paying a babysitter too. So, sometimes it was just, we can afford to pay the babysitter and that's it. That was still okay.
Yeah.
And so I really think that got us through some really difficult times during that period in our relationship when parenting was really, really challenging.
Right. And you had to be on all the time, and you couldn't record a podcast back then when kids were tiny and needing you for everything. And so we really needed that time. And
it was effort to make that time.
Right.
And I think it's really easy to fall out of that habit. So my encouragement to anyone listening is to schedule a date with your partner. And in fact, a lot of clients that come to me, if they're in a partner relationship and they're at all talking about conflict in that relationship or just stress in that relationship, I always ask them when the last time was you were alone with your partner. And most people can't really tell me because it's not something we kind of give people permission to make a priority.
Right.
Even if you're feeling like, I don't like my partner, we don't like the same things, I don't know if I really want to date them, that's when you should.
Yeah.
Figure out something. What did you do for a date before you actually got together and were committed to each other?
Well, I would say also, just as another tip there, be present. Don't scroll through your phone. Spend a couple extra minutes getting ready, shaving, making yourself presentable. Like, talk about, you mentioned you define that as wooing your partner, right?
Or courting.
Courting, that's right. Courting your partner. So whatever you would do before you were married or when you first started dating, those same sort of things you did to get ready and make yourself presentable and make it so that your partner can tell that you care.
Right. You're sending a message. Like when you wear your hat not backwards. I'm looking at him because he's wearing his hat backwards now.
I prefer a backwards hat. Jenni doesn't like that so much.
But when we go out and we're somewhere where you can wear a hat and you deliberately put it on the correct way.
Yes.
I know that you're doing that because you know that it means something to me.
Absolutely.
It's a little bit like love language, like we talked about on episode 4. But like also when I maybe do my hair and not have it in like a messy bun, or when I throw some makeup on, something like that. It doesn't have to be fancy, but I think it's about the effort there. It's that effort. Like I'm going to just go an extra step because I want to show you that it means something to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Anything else on tip number 1, date your partner?
I don't think so.
Tip number 2 is very weird when I say it. It's hold business meetings. So I always say that you and your partner, whether you have children or not, you're essentially running a company. You're kind of coworkers in this thing called life, this business venture that you have, which is to get through the day and maybe own a house together or run a home together or own cars together or have pets or have children. You're running a business. And if you've ever worked anywhere, you know that staff meetings are a necessity. That's how everyone kind of makes sure they get on the same page, that expectations are in check, that things don't kind of fall by the wayside. I think it's really important to do that in relationships. And sometimes it might mean, hey, Josh, we need to have a meeting like tonight at 5:00. We need to go over some things. You may or may not need an agenda. And I know this sounds really crazy. I get that. Hold on to it. Lean into it. It works. Trust me.
Really does.
Maybe you need a reminder on your phone, like a little list on your phone, or maybe you need an agenda. Or maybe it can be just sort of on the fly while you guys are driving to separate places in your car. But it's really important to kind of approach it as if you were running a business.
Absolutely.
Imagine, so what's coming up? So we'll do this a lot at the beginning of the week. And it's important here to schedule your business meeting at a time that works for both of you.
Right.
So I know for me, I'm usually the one getting the kids off to school in the morning. That's sort of my task, my job. Josh is already at work then. I know, and I think he knows, it's not going to work for him to call me in the middle of that to have like a meeting and
even
talk
though
about.
I try sometimes.
Even though he tries, and I need to remind him.
Yeah.
But what does kind of work is after all of the kids are off to school and I am on my way to work, if he has a few minutes free, then it works for us to connect for 5 minutes over the phone to kind of have a game plan. And if you're someone like us that has jobs and your kids are in different schools and they're having sports and they have doctor's appointments and physical therapy and you have pets with vet appointments, you all need to get on the same page. And things like Google Calendar can help.
That's huge.
Actually being able to talk about it and say, hey, I don't know if you saw, but Wednesday on the calendar, there's a dentist appointment for both boys at 3:00. What's the plan? How are we going to get them there? Really helpful, because if you don't have those meetings, communication breaks down and then there's fighting, there's blame, there's resentment, and things just don't work as well. And then you end up spending your time together kind of fighting about the breakdown or figuring all those sort of kinks out. So if you can schedule time, it's good. And you can pair those with a date night, right? You could say that for the first 10 minutes of our date night, we're going to talk business, and then we're not talking about it anymore. So for those of you out there listening, think about putting that into action. How can you sort of implement a sort of business approach to your relationship? I know that doesn't sound romantic, but it allows space for the non-romantic part of your relationship so that then you have space for the other stuff.
Right. I can't imagine if we spent, an entire date night out at a restaurant or a bar talking about logistical details of the upcoming week. That wouldn't be fun.
Right. But at some point we need to have those conversations, right? Which leads me into tip number 3. Don't expect mind reading. Ask for what you need. And I think a lot of couples fall into this trap of expecting their partner to read their mind and expecting their partner to read their room the same way they do. Yeah. So I love Josh, but he is extremely...
I knew there was a but coming. I was nervous.
Wait, hold on. I'm going to bring in my social worker. I love Josh. And... Oh, you knew it.
I knew.
And we shouldn't say but. And... he is very mess blind. So he and I can walk into the same room and I can instantly see, oh my gosh, the vacuum needs to be run in here. Everything is dusty. There is straw wrappers from juice boxes on the floor, the bane of my existence.
Yes.
And there are school papers that need to be sorted. And he can walk into a room and be like, hey, it smells nice in here.
Or, hey, I have to go mix that podcast.
Yeah, like it doesn't even register for him. So it's wrong of me to walk into that same room and then get angry at him for not seeing that stuff. Because but listen, I've been there before and sometimes I still fall into that.
We're recording this, right? So I have record of this.
Yes, that just threw me off. You've derailed the whole thought train there. So it's wrong of me to get mad at him or expect him to take action, right? Like I can't expect him to start picking up straw wrappers because he hasn't seen them. So I can't expect him to read my mind and then get mad at him when he doesn't read my mind. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm saying?
But you can expect me to understand where you're coming from because you've told me. You've shared that with me.
Right. So, yes. So that's how I walk into a room and see a room now. And I think we're trying to get better, or I'm trying to get better at saying the living room is really messy. And Josh will then say, what's a mess? And I say, and he'll actually usually stop me and say, what do you mean when you say it's a mess? So then I will say, The rug needs to be vacuumed. Everything needs to be dusted. The straw wrappers need to be picked up. And I forget what the third thing was. And there's school papers. Oh, he remembered. There's school papers. I need you, or can you please, run the vacuum? I'm asking him. Then if he doesn't do it, okay, that's different. But if I don't say any of that to him, if I don't help him see what I'm seeing and then ask him what I'm needing for help in that moment, then it's not really fair for me to get mad at him when he doesn't do those things. But couples fall into that trap, and we expect our partners to see things the way we see things. And we expect them to know kind of intrinsically what we need. Now, listen, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't ever try to, sort of learn about our partners.
Right.
And, Josh should try to sort of read a room a little bit differently. But I have a responsibility there too. And a lot of couples fall into that trap of, last night the dishes were there and she didn't pick them up. She wouldn't wash them. And I say, did you ask her? And the answer is almost always no, but there was a lot of hurt feelings there. And so this is really, really hard for couples to transition into asking for what you need, because there's something, I don't know where we learn it. I'd have to really think about that. But there's something that we're kind of taught, and it's ingrained, that we shouldn't have to ask our partners for things. They should just do it. Maybe it's like romantic movies or something.
I don't know.
Maybe it's Disney. I don't know. Maybe we expect to be kind of rescued, but it's not real.
Can you talk a little bit about how to ask, right? Like there's a way to do that is conducive to a good conversation, or just, indicative of a good relationship. Well, how's the best? Something comes to mind, but I'll wait. For me, I have a thought, but what are your thoughts on how to ask for what you need?
Dude, pick up the straw wrappers. It's probably not the best way. Yeah. That's my instinct.
Are you an idiot? Did you not see the straw wrappers?
Yeah. So yes, there are ways to ask that are kind of gracious and respectful. Mm-hmm. We have tendencies to not be respectful to our partner because they're the person that we've chosen. And so they're going to be there with us, so we can take out all of our stress on them.
Yeah. Punching bags. And that's understandable and happens sometimes, but isn't really the best approach. No. What comes to me is we use this statement a lot when we are talking together and discussing our needs. We use declarative statements.
Yes. And so that is a technique that we've learned. And I actually think we use it more when we're arguing. Yeah. I think that has become a tool that we lean into when we're starting to kind of enter an argument space that's kind of having elements of mind reading in it. Where then one of us will say to the other, and I think we do this pretty equally, make a declarative statement.
Yeah.
So what's an example of a declarative statement in that living room situation? I have one.
Go
ahead. Josh, the living room is really messy. I need you to pick up the straw wrappers and sort through those school papers. I'm going to run the vacuum.
Perfect.
Right?
Right.
That would be... I'm asking with a kind of statement.
Right.
That's still better than not saying anything and then starting passive aggressively, like slamming doors or like shuffling through the papers on my own while sighing and rolling my eyes and expecting you to notice that.
Exactly.
So I want those of you that are listening to really think about, like, what are those kind of hot button areas in your house or in your relationship where you get really irritated and ticked off with your partner for not doing something. And then think about, do you ask them to do it? And maybe you do after the fact. Maybe you say, like, it really bugged me that you didn't pick up those straw wrappers. There is an element of expectation that you would hope your partner would start to pick up the straw wrappers, but we're human.
Right.
We're human. And if you want the relationship to work, it's about kind of give and take. And so maybe you can preemptively say, when we get home, let's both look together at what the living room looks like as a mess. Am I making sense here?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I want folks, if you're into it, if you're open to it, to really kind of think about what those things in your life might be. Yeah. Usually for a lot of couples, especially couples with children, it's around household tasks and chores.
Right.
It's around things like laundry, dishes, house cleaning, kids, sports stuff.
Yeah.
That's usually what it's around.
Things that need to get done.
That aren't fun. Things
Right.
that need to get done, that aren't fun, that are easy to kind of avoid. Those are usually what it's about. So what are those things in your life, and how can you maybe think about asking your partner instead of getting mad at them for not reading your mind? And I understand it takes a little bit of, I'm asking folks to swallow your pride a little bit, because gosh darn it, you really want them to read your mind.
Easy with the language.
I know, right? Do you think they said that in 17, what did I say, 24?
I think so. No, yeah, maybe.
Okay.
But I think in asking for what you need in declarative, respectful ways that also speak about how you feel.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Makes sense?
I think that makes sense.
What's next?
Learn your love language.
Ooh.
So a little callback to episode 4. If you don't know your love language, go ahead and listen to episode 4 and click the link so that you and your partner can take the little quiz and figure out what your love language is. Essentially, a sort of Cliff's Notes version of that would be find out what is indicative of love for yourself and for your partner. Mm-hmm. So for some couples, acts of service like picking up straw wrappers, putting away dishes. For some people, that means, oh, they love me because they're doing those things. That's how I kind of receive love. Or it means, well, since I've received love this way, this is how my partner must receive love. So I'm not going to tell them that I love them or tell them that they mean something to me, but I'm going to make sure there's never a straw wrapper on the floor. And there can be a lot of disconnect around that. So find out what that is for your partner and for yourself. And then go back to it, circle back to it, because I'm pretty sure when we did this, which I think was back around the time that we started having date nights, I think that what was important to me, what showed me that you loved me, was acts of service, was doing the household chores. Now it's quality time together.
Exactly.
But I think it was different when we were at sort of a different developmental stage.
In the episode, it does change. It can change over time.
For sure.
Mm-hmm. So you're going to put that link in this show notes too?
Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
I'll figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
Link to a previous episode. I'll work on that.
Or just put the link to the test.
Oh, yes, I can do that.
The love languages test.
I can do that. Number 5, and a lot of couples struggle with this one.
This is my favorite one, I think.
Take vacations alone.
Yeah.
Now, I know some of you are probably driving or sitting there thinking, sure, if we had money, we could. It doesn't have to be a big fancy vacation.
It really doesn't.
It could be a vacation where like someone takes your kids for the night and you guys just don't go anywhere. Or it could be, I think some of our favorite our favorite vacations are when we get on a plane and we go somewhere with a beach. Right.
I know what you're going to say though, because we've got, I guess another tip, a side tip to this, a 5A, so to speak, would be, don't forget I like outlines.
That's right.
Find a special place that means a heck of a lot to you as a couple. And use that as your vacation destination. We have a favorite local hotel that we go to at least once a year. It's not all that expensive. It's pretty close, but it's our vacation.
Yeah, it's 20 minutes away. We book it when there's trips, and every year we say we're going to go more often than once a year. But it's so much fun to just disconnect from everything else and really, I guess, it's kind of an extended date. So maybe if I were going to do this in outline form, I would put this under number 1 as a type of way to date your partner.
Right.
It's an extended date, to get away. And I'm not talking about getting away with other grown-ups, with other family members, without kids. I'm talking about time to connect just one-on-one and travel with your partner. Travel big or travel little, or travel not at all, but vacation. No work, no responsibilities, no kid duties, just you and your partner. And maybe that means you're going out and dancing and going out for dinners, or maybe that means you're just sitting there watching a movie.
Yeah.
Whatever it is for you guys as a couple, figure that out. I know a few couples who have really found a deeper and more meaningful connection after traveling for the first time together. We fall into these patterns, especially when our kids are younger, of feeling guilty about leaving without them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really hard, but it's worth it.
Yes.
To sort of put the energy and the time and the emotional investment into being with your partner.
I feel like it makes us, I don't know, when we're closer and feeling more connected, it makes us better parents.
Sure. Yeah, I think everything, so. We're not really in silos, right? There's not like the mom version of us, the dad version of us, the professional version of us, the PTO volunteer version of us, the friend version of us, all existing separately. They're all kind of components of us, right?
Yeah.
I'm not talking about you and I, Josh. I mean us sort of generally. And so when you improve sort of your overall balance in one of those areas, it's of course going to carry over into other areas. So if you're feeling more fulfilled in your relationship, if you're feeling more fulfilled and connected with your partner, then you're probably going to start feeling better able to parent at a higher level.
Absolutely. And I think it's always good to model great relationships for your kids too.
Yes. Yeah. And an important, so I don't think I talk about this in here, but important for kids' sake, that when they see you argue, that they also get to see you resolve that argument. Mm-hmm. And maybe that means they actually see that process, or maybe it means that you circle back around and you're like, I'm sorry that mommy and daddy fought earlier today. We argued. This is how we resolved it. So they can kind of have a healthy view of relationships and conflict. Number 6 is try new things.
Yeah.
Maybe you start a podcast.
Right. Out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
But you're out of your comfort zone together. And it might not be both of you out of your comfort zone, but one of you is and the other one's there to support you.
Right. And it could be something big like go skydiving or parasailing, or maybe it's just try a new restaurant, or go to a different kind of sporting event, or take a walk at a different park. But give yourself chances to kind of fall out of your routine and don't always go to the same place.
Right.
I don't mean a physical place, but also a physical place. Don't always do the same thing.
You can connect regardless of the outcome of that adventure, right? Like if you try a new restaurant that's not good, and you can chat about it together. You have that moment where you can connect and be like, yo, that was not fun, right? You remember that? And we talk about it back and forth. Or I like
when you tried to take me to that restaurant we were really excited about, and then I got there and I was like, I'm not going in there.
It looked scary in there.
Well, and there was no parking. And but we still had an enjoyable night, and then had to sort of problem solve because it was a Saturday night. We had no reservation anywhere else, and that was fun. So we wound up still back at a normal place that we frequent, but we tried something new, and there was enjoyment in that trying.
Right. And then I would invite people to try to combine these two and try new things on vacation, right?
Yep.
Like jumping off a cliff.
Yeah. I'm not doing that again, just to be clear.
But you did do that.
I did jump off a cliff in Mexico and swam in a cold cave with bats.
Yeah.
And snorkeled where there were sharks.
And you can say that you did it.
Yes.
And you tried new things, and we had that experience together.
Except for when you swam away from me and I was all alone with the sharks.
Listen, I got lost. And I ended up losing a flipper because we were snorkeling.
Yeah, but we tried new things, and here we are, I don't know, 14 years later, still talking about that fun adventure that we had. So yes, the new things can be big new things or little new things, but try new things because it's really easy to kind of fall into a rut with your partner. the sort of along the same lines, do things that your partner enjoys. So there's sort of flavors and elements of this. If you are someone who's with someone, for instance, who enjoys golf and you've never golfed before, maybe at some point in your relationship, you could give it a try. You could at least go to a driving range and hit some balls.
Mm-hmm.
Am I using appropriate golf language here?
Sure.
Okay.
I've golfed like 3 times in my entire life, so
it's more than I have.
Let's do it.
I'm a mini golfer. So think about those things that your partner enjoys. Is there a way that you could be a little bit of a part of that sometimes? Not all the time, but can you give the message that like, hey, I love you and you're important to me and I'm going to try to sort of give this thing a try or find a way to be a part of it.
Right. Or if you know that there's something that your partner's been looking to try that's new, those new things, right? Maybe you're not into that or you're scared about that. Go ahead and try it with them.
Right. Exactly. The number 8 is physical connection. I think a lot of couples find it difficult to connect physically with their partner, especially if you've got kids at home, if you have a busy life. It's just hard to make time. And I'm talking sort of the whole sort of spectrum of physical connection. I think a lot of couples wind up having to kind of work at that. Yeah. And that is disappointing for a lot of couples because the movies and the TV and sort of the pop culture, Hollywood couples that are out there give the impression that like we should always be madly in love and couples should always not be able to like keep their hands off of each other. And there should always be this like intense spark. That's not real. It's not real. And if you're in a relationship that's had that intense spark for 50 years, kudos to you. Yeah. You are an anomaly and not everybody has that. So rather than giving up and just saying it's not there, couples have to kind of work at that and really kind of almost schedule time and sort of push themselves to do that because that's when the reconnection occurs. Mm-hmm. So a little bit weird, and obviously consent has to be there on both parties' part. But, if you guys aren't feeling physically connected, maybe you should be the one that reaches out your hand and tries to hold your partner's hand if that physical connection is important to you and you're missing it. Again, this goes back to asking for what you need and not being a mind reader. Yeah. Sometimes you need to also show what you need. And so don't expect, I guess the point here is don't expect physical connection to always just happen. Sometimes you literally have to schedule it and say like, maybe at your business meeting, all right, Tuesday night's going to look good for us. Does that work good for you? Great. Let's plan on it. I'll meet you there. I know that sounds crazy, but if your life is super hectic and really fully scheduled, you might need to do that for a little bit in order to reconnect with your partner.
Well, I think the physical connection too, and you take it to, you said the whole spectrum of physical connection, but really simple, light, sweet touches when you walk by or grab someone's hand or, I try to, when I walk by you, put my hand on your back real briefly, right? Just to say, hey, I know they're here. I love you. I'm going to touch you real quick so you know that I'm here and that I see you, right?
Right. Something that
Those are easy to forget to do.
They are easy to forget to do. And the distinction here is you wouldn't do those to your friend, right?
Yeah.
Like, or your coworker. If
your roommate.
Or your roommate. Like you wouldn't like walk into the kitchenette at work and lightly touch your coworker's back, right?
You could.
I mean, I'm hoping.
But then you'd be in HR.
We're getting into other issues here. Right. Or your friend, you're out at like a party with your friends.
HR.
You're out at a party with your friends. That physical connection isn't important in the same way.
Right.
And so this becomes one of the only relationships in your life where that physical connection is important. And so it's easy to lose track of that. Kind of becomes a part of dating your partner, right? Because most people, when they're dating, perhaps there's more of a tendency to hold hands and kind of put your arm around each other and just kind of physically be close to each other. But that's something to consider too, is that physical connection. So recapping what we have so far. Number 1, date your partner. So figure that out. Figure out a time. I challenge you to figure out a time to date. Go on a date with your partner. It can be simple. It literally can be, let's have someone watch the kids and we go sit in our car and look at the ocean.
Yeah.
Or we look at the parking lot of Target. Like, I don't care what it is. Find a date. Make a date with your spouse. No friends.
Can we
no
go
kids.
into Target?
You could absolutely go
I mean,
into
there's
Target.
Starbucks in there and stuff.
Actually, on our date tonight, we probably also need to run into Target, just so you know.
Actually, that's a really good idea.
Yes. Here we are holding business meetings in the middle of our podcast.
Yes.
So number 1, date your partner. Number 2, hold business meetings to get that logistical stuff squared away with your partner. Number 3, don't expect mind reading. Ask for what you need.
With declarative statements.
And use declarative statements. Number 4, learn your love language and your partner's love language. Number 5, take vacations alone without your children, without your friends, without your family, just you and your partner. Big vacations or small vacations. Number 6, try new things with your partner. Number 7, do things that your partner enjoys. So if there's hobbies or interests that interest them but not you, maybe sometimes every once in a while, go along with them if they want you to show them that you're interested in it. Number 8, maintain physical connection.
If you really want to go to the Target parking lot and just look at it, I'm really not into that, but I'll do that with you if that's what you want to do.
Okay. And then my final tip, and Josh has been jotting down notes furiously, so I don't know what he's going to come up with after this, but my number 9 is, so this is my final tip, and this is sort of the overall tip, is lean into each other, not away from each other. And most couples, so many couples, the reason their relationship breaks down and they struggle and they grow apart is because life happened. And maybe there were big stressors, losses, or little stressors, maybe lots of them. But what happened at some point along the way is that couple turned away from each other. They leaned out of the relationship. Maybe they leaned into work. Maybe they leaned into their friends. Maybe they leaned into unhealthy habits like drinking or any other kind of drug use. Maybe they leaned into themselves. They didn't lean into each other. And so what I talk with a lot of couples that come see me about is how can you find a way to lean into each other during conflict? And I'm not talking about physically leaning into each other. I'm talking about leaning into the uncomfortable space.
And sometimes, let me just say that one of the partners, one of the people in the relationship will lean away, right?
Sure.
And I would encourage the other person to not give up on them. I tend to do this when we're dealing with something extremely stressful, especially when it comes to our kids. In fact, just yesterday, this was me. We were dealing with a little bit of a tough situation, and I leaned away from it, and you didn't really give up on me. And at the end of it, we came out of it, I was able to say, I was disconnected because of this. I was upset, whatever. But you didn't lean away from me. And we ended up having, a good chat about it, and we were connecting.
Right. Thank you for sharing and for being personal. Everything is okay. It was just a sports related injury for one of our children, and we were awaiting MRI results, which could have huge implications for the future. And so waiting 8 hours for the doctor's phone call is a little stressful.
Felt like 8 years.
And Josh is right. His tendency in situations like that is to lean out, to lean away. And if I also lean out and lean away, and then we wake up today and continue leaning out and away, then we're going to get further and further and further and further and further apart. And so you might be in a place like that before. And we've been in a place before in our relationship where we both have leaned out and we've been really disconnected for an extended period of time. If that's you still can come back together. You can reconnect. Your partner is the person that you've chosen. You chose each other for a reason.
Right.
And while you may be different people now than you were when you got together, you probably are. That doesn't mean that you can't sort of renegotiate how the relationship works and find a way to still be together. So I always like to encourage couples before they give up on a relationship to fully try again, to really lean into it, lean into each other, try to do these things and see if there's a way kind of back to each other. And that's what relationships are. I think relationships are periods where you're really close with your partner and then you're not so close. And then you're really close. I think friendships can be the same way. Everything kind of ebbs and flows, but you've got to be aware of that and make sure you're actively working to stay connected. So these are just a few tips that we came up with, kind of easy-ish to start implementing. And I encourage you guys to do that in your relationship, to pick one or two of these and try it and then see what happens. And so often what I hear from folks in my practice, clients and patients that I see, it's these small changes that can make huge steps in their relationship. Right. You know, just a partner no longer expecting their partner to read their mind and asking them to get the kids ready for bed can make huge changes in their relationship. Just that one little change, or just one date night for the first time in six months can remind you, like, oh yeah, I really like this person. We have a lot of fun when we're together. Like, they make me laugh and they see me for me. So really think about that. And again, caveat here, we're not perfect. Josh and I are not perfect. I'm not at all holding myself out there as a relationship expert. No. I'm just saying, here are some tips that I've learned personally and professionally.
On that, I don't think we mentioned, if you don't know us and you haven't listened to episode 1, or I think we've mentioned it a bunch of times, but we are high school sweethearts. We've been together a very long time, 25 years, and we've had lots of ups and lots of downs and everything in between. But the point is, we've learned a lot.
Right.
We've learned a lot. So this is a little bit.
And we're still learning.
Yeah, still learning. Absolutely.
And I always tell folks that I think we're very good at understanding that children move through developmental stages, right? Like, we know, infancy is a developmental stage, and then they become toddlers and they can do a little bit more. They can kind of walk and they can start to talk some words, and then they become preschoolers, and then elementary school, middle school, teenagers, young adults. And I think we tend to think like, all right, once you're an adult until you die.
Once you're together, and that's it.
That's it. Exactly. But I think as adults, and Erickson also does say that there are, Erik Erikson also, he's a developmental theorist, talks about there being different developmental stages. And he does essentially say that there's some stages in adulthood too. I think there's even more stages than what he talks about. Yeah. Think about how many developmental stages you and I have gone through just in the 13 years that we've been parents. Yeah. Our sort of life stages have changed a lot. And so your relationship with your partner is going to change through each developmental stage, and you're going to change through each developmental stage. So each of those stages kind of require finding your partner again. Who is your partner? Yeah. I don't mean finding a new partner for each stage, although if that's your thing, go with it. But I mean, figuring out a way to still connect with your partner. Yeah. You're the person I chose. How are we going to make this work during this developmental stage?
Well, I have actually a couple of tips for that.
Oh, great.
And this is what I was writing down feverishly.
You were.
Do more of the things that you connect about, like the things that are really special to both of you, and the little things. I love texting funny things to Jenni. That's just an example, right? Text funny jokes, text GIFs, inside jokes. I think it's GIFs.
Can someone tell me? Is it GIFs or GIFs?
I think it could go either way.
Well, I need it to be definitive.
Well, the funny moments that you share together, the inside jokes, lean into those, use those, and bring those up all the time. I mean, one of the things that we connect on is remembering funny moments in movies and television shows that we enjoy together, and quoting that to each other. I mean, we quote Friends to each other pretty much daily.
I mean, who doesn't though, right?
Right. But those are special things that really, I don't know, it makes me feel more connected to you, makes me feel like our relationship is stronger.
So it's a little bit like our language. Yeah. And I know it's sounding a little bit like the love language reference, but it's kind of like speaking our dialect, maybe, if we're going to stay with the language metaphor here, is that kind of speak your dialect. Mm-hmm. So I guess that is what we do. So figure out,
Right.
I was talking to someone the other day. I don't know if they listen. If so, they may be able to identify themselves, but they have a text with their partner, and I think with their children too, and they communicate through like bitmojis and emojis, and they have like a funny little saying, and they kind of try to one up each other. That's kind
awesome.
of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's sort of their dialect there. So so
even
using that, don't shy away from that.
And I'm guilty of, this happens all the time. I mean, we spend, I don't know, 12 to 15 hours during the week not with each other. So
just 12 to 15 hours a week?
I don't know, a day. Did I say a week?
Yeah.
I meant a day. Wouldn't that be great?
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
No, I actually really love my job, so I don't want to work just that much, but
I hear you. But what I was going to say was, I don't always tell you when I think of you.
Yes.
Right? So
yes.
Just a quick tip, because I think it does go pretty far. Goes a long way when I tell you that I've thought of you, or if I'm listening to Spotify and a funny song pops up, or a song I know that reminds me of us, I'll screenshot it and send it to you.
Right.
And I think taking the 2 seconds, a minute, however long it takes to do that goes a long way. Because truth of the matter is,
hey, I'm thinking of you.
Mm-hmm.
You matter. You matter enough for me to take 10 seconds out and send this little text.
Because if you're happy in your relationship and you're with the right person, chances are you're thinking of them. Something will pop up that makes you think of them.
Right.
Let them know.
I think that goes back to sort of dating your partner, right? I think, listen, it's been a long time since we dated, but things have changed now. But what I know about dating, and I think I'm still correct, is that you're in contact with them, and it becomes really important for them to know that you're thinking about them and that you're serious about that relationship.
Well, listen, we have to figure out a new way to date, because I asked you out by my locker, and we used to hang out in the band room. So those things aren't around anymore.
That's right. We had to make changes as we got older.
I guess I could write you a note and fold it up and put it in your textbook or something, but we have phones for that.
You're alluding to sort of changing developmentally.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Exactly.
Did you write anything else down feverishly? What else do your scribbles say?
I think that was it. Do more of the things you connect on. Funny jokes, inside jokes. Yeah, that's good.
Okay. All right.
I think that's all that I had written.
Great. So this was hopefully a little bit lighter for everybody, not just death and grief all the time, but hopefully it also was a little bit helpful and at least made some of you think a little bit differently about your partner and your relationship with your partner.
Just enjoy each other.
And yes, but it's also normal to not enjoy each other sometimes. And this is really about, what do you do during those times? Like, how do you still find a way to connect with your partner and want to be with them? Right. So if you have other tips, please go ahead and share them with us. We're happy to circle back around to this topic, either in a future podcast or just on our social media pages or on our blog. So don't hesitate. If there's something that's really worked for you and you want to kind of share it with others, go ahead and drop us a line. You can communicate on any of our social media pages or send us an email as well. Right.
We will continue to have lighter episodes about relationships and connecting and all that kind of stuff. So send us your thoughts.
Yes.
So do you have anything else?
That was it.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for today. Thank you guys so much for listening. You can learn more on this topic by, I don't know, going to Google.
No, talking every time you kind of throw it back at me and encourage people to go to Google, I'm going to say to lean into whatever we're talking about. So I'm going to say you can learn more about this topic by talking with your partner.
Yes.
And saying, hey, I listened to this podcast, or listen to this podcast with me. Let's figure out when we think Jenni and Josh are being crazy and totally off the wall. And let's identify if there's a couple of those tips that might work for our relationship. So if you'd like to learn more, talk with your partner.
Absolutely. Well, you can go ahead and follow us on Facebook at Changing Perspectives Podcast and on Instagram at Changing Perspectives Blog. You can check out our website by going to changingperspectivesblog.com, or please send us an email to changingpodcast@gmail.com. Go ahead and subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. Give us a rating and review on iTunes. That's how more of your friends get a chance to listen to us, right?
Yeah, the goal is for this to be accessible. So
absolutely.
The more people rate us, even if you rate us poorly, that gives us feedback to make some changes. It makes it easier for folks to find us in the iTunes store. And our whole goal with this is to not be famous, to not be rich, none of that. Can you get rich and famous from iTunes? I don't even think from iPods.
People can.
Podcasts.
These are podcasts.
I'm still struggling
with
podcasts. No, the point is to be a resource.
Yeah.
And you hear in a lot of the sort of recommendations from Josh about like our Instagram page and Facebook page. You also hear blog in there. And really the origin of Changing Perspectives is a blog format, but I'm just finally getting with the times and making the blog content more easily accessible via podcast format.
Yes.
So I forget what the point was there, how I got to the podcast piece, but thanks for going with me.
Yeah, sure. Lean into it. Absolutely. Well, we will see you next time for our next episode, and that's about it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Say bye, Jenni.
Bye, Jenni.
The Changing Perspectives podcast is produced, recorded, and edited by Dizzy-Bird Studios, Whitman, Massachusetts. Visit Dizzy-Bird Studios on Facebook, facebook.com/Dizzy-Bird Studios.